everyone. My name is Brad. I'm a 12-year employee of the United States Postal Service. I'm making this video today because a lot of my friends and people I've talked to on Facebook, they're really interested in getting a job with the Postal Service, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what the different jobs are for new hires in the Postal Service. So I wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to apply online, and go over the 5 main jobs that new hires typically get when they get a job with the Postal Service. So we are going to go to USPS.com. You're going to go to the bottom of the screen and click on Careers. Then you can click on Ready to Apply, and you're going to need to create an account for your eCareer profile. Once you're done with that, you click Search Jobs, and then you select whichever state that you want to apply for a job in. Then you just click Start. You'll see a very large list of jobs hopefully pop up for you, which you can browse. When you find the proper job you are looking for, you just click on it. It's going to tell you all the information, where it's located, and pretty much any of the information that I tell you in this video will be on that sheet. You just click Apply if you're ready to go. Let me start by saying I'm not here to tell you whether or not a job with the Postal Service may or may not be right for you. It's definitely not for everybody, but I got a job 12 years ago at the age of 18. I've been a regular full-time for the last 4 years now, and I think it's an absolutely awesome job, especially for me. Last year I made about $70,000, and I'm still at the beginning of my pay scale, and I only worked an average of 30 to 35 hours per week. This job that I have is a rural carrier, and I'll talk a little bit more later about the different, the way the pay works differently between the different positions. But the way my job works is I am able to make myself as efficient as possible and get done as quick as possible to make basically the most money per hour possible. Now, whether or not a job with the Postal Service is going to be lucrative is going to mainly depend on where you live in the United States. Like I said earlier, I made $70,000 last year. That is considered very, very good for the area that I live in, which is in North Carolina. But in a place like San Francisco, New York City, places like that, the salaries are the exact same no matter where you work in the United States for the Postal Service. So that's borderline poverty in those cities. So it may or may not be worth it for you to get a job with the Postal Service, depending on where you live. Okay, so the first job we're going to talk about is the Rural Carrier Associate, RCA for short. This is the job that I started out with for 8 years of my life before I became a regular rural carrier. I think that it is probably the most desirable of all of the 5 that we're going to talk about, mainly because of something called evaluated pay. Let's start with how much it gets paid. All around the United States, everybody gets paid the same. It's $17.78 per hour at the moment. This goes up as the cost of living adjustment happens, so that does trickle up slowly, but there's never any big raises when you're a part-time employee with the Postal Service. The first thing you know about being a rural carrier associate is you work on an as-needed schedule. So you'll know most of the time a week in advance which days you're going to be working, but you have to be available every single day no matter what. So if they call you at 6 o'clock in the morning and a regular carrier has called out sick or has had an emergency, they can ask you to come into work. So you have to be ready for that. When I was talking to you earlier about the evaluated pay, let me explain how that works. There are 2 types of pay that you're going to get as a rural carrier associate: evaluated pay and hourly pay. Evaluated pay basically means that when you're assigned to run a route for the day, that route is assigned a certain amount of hours that it's worth. It can be anywhere from 4 hours or even a little under that for what's called an auxiliary route to the full-time routes, which are going to be anywhere from around 7.5 hours up to 9 hours a day. No matter how long it takes you to carry this route, or how short a time or how long a time, you're going to get paid whatever that route is evaluated at. So let's say that you're on an 8.5 hour route. You are able to run it and finish it in 6 hours. You still get paid the full 8.5 hours for that route. Now on the flip side, if it takes you 10 hours or 11 hours, you're still only going to get paid 8.5 hours. So This job definitely works well for people who are good with being efficient and time management. You also have hourly pay as a rural carrier associate. Whenever you're not running a route, they may have you doing other miscellaneous jobs like going out and helping other carriers or just delivering packages, but not actually running a route, which is when you are delivering the mail and the packages and everything like that at the same time. You will be paid hourly at that point. So that's just like any other job. You're just going to get paid your normal hourly amount for however many hours that you work. Rural carrier associates work Monday through Sunday. They can have you any day of the year. Basically, you have to be available to work that. The next starting position with the Postal Service that I want to talk about is very similar to the RCA that we just talked about. It's called an Assistant Rural Carrier, or ARC. The only difference, the pay is still the same, $17.78 per hour. The only difference is you only work Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. Monday through Friday, they are not allowed to schedule you. The benefit to this particular position is you can work it around a normal Monday through Friday job. An RCA, you have to be available all those days during the week, so it really doesn't mesh well with other full-time jobs. But an ARC may be for you if, say, you have a job at Lowe's or Home Depot or Food Line or something like that, and you don't want to mess with that job. You just want some supplementary income. ARCs also get the same type of pay as an RCA, the evaluated and the hourly pay, depending on which type of job that you're doing at the time. Okay, the next job that we're going to talk about is quite a bit different from the RCA and the ARC. This is the City Carrier Assistant, or CCA. While you are delivering parcels and mail, just like the job that I just talked about, you're doing so in very densely populated, mainly cities. That's why it's called a City Carrier Assistant. The pay for this job is slightly lower than RCAs and ARCs. It's $17.29 per hour. The main difference when it comes to pay between this and the RCA and ARC is you are strictly hourly paid. So, if you work 11 hours, you get paid for 11 hours. Also, if they only need to work you 4 or 5 hours, you're only going to get paid for those 4 or 5 hours. It's the same as the RCA and ARC on the lines of you're going to need to be available at any time, 7 days a week. However, now these last 3 jobs we're going to talk about, they have something quite a bit different about them, and that's that you get limited benefits with them. So with this job, you're going to get paid time off. You're going to get holiday pay for some holidays, depending on if there are no operations or not. There's not very many of those, only about 5 of them. So you'll get holiday pay for those days. And the only other thing that you need to worry about with the CCA position is you have a 1-year appointment time. So basically what happens is every year you are going to have to take a break, and they're going to reevaluate we'll say your contract with them, and then they decide whether or not to hire you back. Now, in most cases, unless you are a piss poor employee, you're going to get offered a job back with the Postal Service again, and it restarts. After that first year, when you come back for your second year and that point forward, you are going to have access to insurance, flexible spending accounts, basically some watered down benefits that the regular employees enjoy, but you'll just get them at, like I said, a little bit watered down version of them. Now, while rural carriers, rural RCAs and ARCs, they mainly do stuff out in the country, out in the country, and they spend a lot more time in their vehicles. With a CCA, you are going to be doing a lot more walking. So you may have a mounted route where you do a whole lot of driving and delivering from your vehicle into the boxes, but you could also have a large amount of walking. I've seen routes that are 11 or 12 miles of walking a day, and then there are some routes for city carriers that are no walking at all. So you're not going to have any control over what type of route you're on. They could put you on either one of those. So you need to be able to walk. You need to be in good health. Okay, now with this next job, we are moving out of the realm of delivery entirely, and we're moving into retail and mail processing. This job is the Postal Support Employee, or PSE. They are paid $17.19 per hour. They are strictly hourly pay. They have the same limited benefits that I told you about with the CCA, so paid time off. You're going to have some holiday pay, and after that, you're going to still have that year-long appointment where you may or may not be hired back depending on your performance. And then after that first year, you're going to then get insurance and flexible spending and things like that. There are two types of PSEs. You have sales and services PSEs, and then you have mail processing PSEs. Now, which one of these that you choose is going to completely change what type of job you do. So a sales and services PSE is a postal employee that basically does a lot of retail stuff. So you're going to be up at the front with customers, selling them our services, and a lot of customer service involvement with this job. The other one is a mail processing PSE. Now, they tend to come in the very early hours of the morning. They sort out all the packages and the letters to the carriers so that they can deliver their routes. Now, what time you start and what hours you work, that's all going to be completely determined by the office that you're at. So be sure that when you're doing your interview with the postmaster or the supervisor that's hiring you, be sure you ask them what type of hours to expect. Now, even if they tell you that you're going to be working, say, 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. every day, that doesn't mean that can't change, because, again, this is a job where you are working on an as-needed schedule, so they can change that at any time as long as you're a part-time employee. Okay, the last job that I'm going to talk about for new hires is going to be a MHA, or a mail handler assistant. This job is not at a local post office that you may have down the road from you. These jobs are only going to be at the large distribution plants. There are usually a handful of these in every state, and they're generally located next to very, very large cities. So for me, our closest one in North Carolina is going to be Greensboro or Raleigh distribution plants. Mail handler assistants are going to be operating the machines, and in general, at the mail processing facility, they're going to be doing any sort of job inside of that mail processing facility. You could be operating a machine that sorts out the letters, or you could be operating a machine that helps sort out the packages. You could be loading letters into equipment, doing a lot of heavy pulling, things like that. So it's a very physically demanding job. In fact, all of the jobs that we've talked about today, you need to be prepared for very physically demanding work. A very common misconception with the jobs with the Post Service is that you're just going to be sitting and putting letters into mailboxes all day, and that's not the case at all. Whether you're a rural carrier assistant, you're going to be getting out hundreds of times a day to deliver packages to customers' porches and garages. The city carriers, they do the same thing, except they may be walking a lot during the day. The PSEs, even the retail ones, they're going to be on their feet constantly all day long. Mail processing clerks, the mail processing PSEs, you're going to be unloading hundreds, possibly thousands of packages per day, and sorting them out to the carriers. So none of this is going to be easy at all. So be prepared for that. Mail handler assistants also work the same as needed schedule, and they have the same rules as the last two that we talked about, where you have 1-year appointments and you have the limited benefits, and you get the slightly better benefits after your 1-year appointment has expired and you get rehired on. Mail handler assistants make quite a bit less than the other 4 jobs at $16 per hour. So I've told you about all of the entry-level positions with the Postal Service. What you need to know now is how you go full-time within the Postal Service. And all of these 5 jobs, they lead to full-time through the same method, and that is through attrition. So as the regular carriers that have been there longer retire, newer carriers or not newer carriers, but newer employees that are part-time, they fill those spots for the regulars that come available. And that's done through seniority. So the part-time employees that have been there the longest, they have first dibs on going full-time. You're going to have access to retirement with 5% matching from the Postal Service. You're going to have access to flexible spending accounts, very generous paid time off, paid all holidays, and we get the most holidays out of pretty much any government agency that I can think of, and we have some of the best insurance that you can ask for, as well as what is, I consider at least, great job security. I'm not worried about my job at all as a regular carrier, and I know that it's still going to be there when I retire 26 years from now. And there are a few more miscellaneous jobs that I did want to let you know about that I didn't cover in this video because I don't personally have much experience or knowledge about them. You can also get starting jobs with the post office in custodial or janitorial work. That's going to pay quite a bit less than any of the jobs, the delivery jobs or the direct customer relations jobs that I was telling you about earlier. You also have facilities maintenance and vehicle maintenance jobs as well. So if you're a mechanic, you have mechanical experience, you could get a job working on the facilities or our fleet of 200,000+ vehicles. Then we also have tractor trailer operators as well for people with CDLs. Lastly is the administrative side of the Postal Service, or management. You can only get a job in management after you have achieved full-time with the Postal Service and you are given special training, and you can do a detailed position in management to see if it's right for you, and then actually go into management. But once you have gone into management and officially become a supervisor or a postmaster as your job title, you can no longer go back to being a carrier. So that is something you would definitely want to think about. And the pay for managers is actually a little bit higher than any of these jobs that we've talked about here, especially on the top end. So what you'd be looking at is a regular rural carrier makes anywhere between $50,000 and $80,000 a year. A city carrier, depending on where you work, you can make anywhere between $50,000 and $95,000 a year, depending on the amount of overtime that you work. Clerks, they make generally between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, depending on, again, the overtime. Management, they have the supervisors, that's kind of the lower end of the management, they top out around $80,000 a year, but postmasters, depending on which office you're stationed at, they can make anywhere up to $120,000, $130,000 a year. And that's not to mention all of the higher level management, which is above the postmasters. Some of those jobs, they go up to $200,000 a year, all the way up to the postmaster general that makes $300,000 and some $1,000 a year before any kind of bonuses and things like that. Okay, that's it for all of the new hire positions with the U.S. Postal Service. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the comments and I will definitely answer them. If you found this video helpful, please like it. It would help me out a lot. Hope you have a great day.